Hello. If you look back over the videos on my YouTube channel, you'd notice that for about a year I experimented with doing a sort of monthly set of videos where I talk about what I'd played every month of the year. Unfortunately, I found that I either didn't have anything particularly meaningful to say, or I didn't really play enough in the month to fill out the videos, and I struggled to articulate the thoughts when I did have them. They were just dominating my time. It's not what I wanted to be doing. So after January 2024, I kicked it in the head and I thought to myself, at the end of the year, I'll do a sort of top 5 games that I played or whatever, or something like that, a game of the year type video. And that was all well and good until I got to the end of the year and realised that I was going to have to assemble a list of everything that I'd played and articulate my thoughts on it and work out where they were. It got into January and I hadn't even finished the script. It was just a nightmare. So, third time's the charm. This year, I maintained a list of absolutely everything that I played, the date that I started and finished each of them, and how long I played it for, up until the 4th of December, which is when I started working on this video. That list should be scrolling past me on screen now, maybe like in a minute, I'm not sure. If there's an asterisk next to the video game's title, then it was a replay rather than a new game to me, and in such instances I have only logged the hours that I put into those games this year, not my total playtime. So now let's go through and see which ones I think were best at invoking certain emotions from me. Just for some quick rules, with the exception of the Old Favourite Award, only things that I played for the first time this year are eligible to win something, but there's no obligation for something to have come out this year, though it does make it more likely to win something. Games that I've worked on are obviously excluded from this ceremony, even if they are, of course, the best games of the year. The first award that I want to give out is the Honourable Mention Award, to a game which wouldn't have won anything otherwise, but still managed to give me a really special moment. And that game is Red Dead Redemption 1. Spoilers ahead for the endings of both Red Dead 1 and Red Dead 2. Also, I will be using Red Dead 2 footage because I don't have a capture card to grab either the PS3 or Switch version of Red Dead 1, and it doesn't emulate well. The thing that struck me most about playing Red Dead 1 after Red Dead 2 is how it changed my relationship to John and to his home, Beecher's Hope, in the game's twilight hours. I can imagine that playing Red Dead on its release in 2010 and arriving at Beecher's Hope for the first half of the epilogue might have seemed a bit odd. It's a location that's important to John Marston, but doesn't really matter to the player. Instead, playing it after Red Dead 2, it was like returning home. When John, Charles, Uncle and I built Beecher's Hope, it was 1907 for them and 2020 for me. When the US government comes calling at the end of Red Dead 1, it's 1910 for John and 2025 for me. That's a strikingly similar time delta for John and myself to share, and it helped me realise how tragically short his attempt at a normal life was. Knowing the ending ahead of time made it hard to play John's final few missions. I wanted to linger here in twilight. I wanted to stop playing and let John live in perpetuity on his farm, bathed in the melancholy of an eternal late summer sunset, listening to the crickets in the grass and the cattle lowing nearby. Getting attached to the Vanderlyn gang in 2020 meant that John, Abigail, Jack and Uncle felt like a residual pocket of that long-ago, gone-away life. I was a different person back then, just finishing secondary school and moving on to college to learn game development, where I would meet the guy who helped jumpstart my career. When I finished Red Dead 2, I was still in a relationship which proved to be deeply unhealthy, and I hadn't yet met the girl I would later spend 3 years deeply in love with, someone who's now drifting off in her own different direction. I don't think I'll ever see her again. I didn't expect to be particularly emotional when the moment finally came, but I was sobbing. I didn't want to say goodbye to John. I wanted to cling to that pocket of personal history and live through it all again. I didn't want to let go, but I know that to cling to the past is to smother it, to make it a perpetual and interminable present. And sometimes the best thing to do is just swing those barn doors open and stand there, come what may. Anyway, who wants to talk about video games? Fuck's sake. God. Hold on. I knew that if I let myself get precious and prissy about how I was going to shoot this, I'd never actually do so. So I was just like, oh, fuck it, I'll just sit down at my desk and do it. That's better. The first award is called the One Shot Award, and this is the award for my favourite game that I was able to beat in a single sitting. Originally this was for games that I'd finished within an arbitrary hour limit, but I found that that very quickly started to exclude games that did qualify in terms of, like, vibes. So I just have to have reached the end of the game in a single play session. The contenders for this award are Redshift, The Children of Clay, Incarceration, and Mouthwashing. The winner is The Children of Clay. It's a unique concept for a game, an archaeology horror mystery that managed to scare the pants off me in the length of time it takes your average video game to get past all the company idents. My playthrough clocked in at 33 minutes long, according to Steam, and I spent nearly 10 of those minutes hiding behind my own hands. It's completely free, probably runs on a toaster, and actually understands that Lovecraftian horror doesn't just mean putting some fishy dudes on screen. There is nothing more I can say without risking spoiling it. Go play this right now. The next award is the Game That Made Me Feel Scared award. It's a little odd doing it just after giving the last award to a horror game, but I don't have any rules against something winning multiple awards, so this is kind of for the game that I felt built tension the best, because that's what's scary to me. The contenders for this award are The Children of Clay, hello again, Resident Evil 2 Remake from 2019, Amnesia the Bunker, and Hollowbrook Apartments Chapter 1. And the winner for this award is Hollowbrook Apartments, a game that made me so genuinely tense that I had to stop playing it about 2/3 of the way through because I was worried that if a jump scare happened, I would yelp loudly enough to wake my family. I finished it the next morning in broad daylight. The first chapter is the only one available at present, but they're talking about doing more. And taking it in isolation, it is an exceptionally well-paced and tense horror experience that knows when to keep quiet and when to deploy a chainsaw-wielding maniac. There's not a huge amount more I can say without spoiling, so I'll just say that this is the developer Yeti Face Games' debut, and this should definitely put them on your radar as one to watch. I'd like to see them do something a little more experimental next, but it's a strong first outing. Definitely recommend playing this as well. Next up is the Game That Made Me Feel Cool award. The runners-up in this category are Max Payne 3, the Dead as Disco demo, the Resident Evil 4 remake, and Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart. I was originally going to give this award to Max Payne 3, and then when I went back to pick a random chapter and record footage for the video, it just wasn't clicking for me in the same way, and I couldn't work out why. I didn't want to give it to the Resident Evil 4 remake, because while it undeniably made me feel cool, it was a back-to-the-wall panicked sort of cool. And then I played Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart. It is an undeniably late entry. I only played it this last month, right at the end of November, I think. Ratchet & Clank is a series that's completely inseparable from my childhood, so it maybe had the advantage over the Resident Evil 4 remake in that regard too, but I still think I felt cooler side-hopping, dashing and blasting through this than I do in Resident Evil. But it was very close, and my choice here could flip-flop depending on which day you ask me. The key to this entry is the core combat loop, and this is without a doubt my favourite iteration of the Ratchet & Clank core loop. The thing that actually clinched the award was my second playthrough in challenge mode, where the bolt multiplier acts as a direct metric for how long you've been going without taking a hit. Getting that number up to the maximum of 20 times bolt multiplier, using the ice gun on a group of enemies, and then wrench smashing them into frosty chunks while my screen filled with particle effects and my headphones struggled, was just one of the most satisfying gaming experiences of the year, and I am starting to crave it again just thinking about it. The Game That Made Me Laugh award. This award is for the game that made me laugh. Excellent writing there. Just some of my best. It isn't necessarily the game that made me laugh the most, but the game that I still giggle when I think about. I don't know, it's a difficult award to quantify, but the runners-up are Cryptmaster, Incarceration, Cruelty Squad, and Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart again. Games that shoot for straight comedy are not super common, but Cryptmaster, a typing game about playing a sort of oleaginous slurry of undead adventurers, goes for it. It's sometimes witty and sometimes childish, and you can make the very beautifully voiced Cryptmaster himself say some rude words, but it never feels like it's trying to laugh at itself in a weird way. It almost delivers it completely straight, and that's what makes it funny. I really enjoyed my time with Cryptmaster. It came out last year, but I didn't get around to it until this year. It's got a unique art style paired with a fun twist on a classic style of game, which is that it's a sort of grid-based adventure like Ultima, but you have to type out the actions you want to perform in a sort of speed Scrabble arrangement. It's not surprising that I love this, considering my keyboard, but I really enjoyed playing this, and I hope you at least give it a go, and show the devs some love if you have fun with it. This award is for the game that made me feel clever. It's good for puzzle games and such. Runners-up for this one are Return of the Obra Dinn, for obvious reasons. Cryptmaster, again, for solving the riddles and word puzzles in it. Baldur's Gate 3, for the variety of problem-solving it let me do in combat scenarios. Or Hollow Knight Silksong, for the aha moment of walking through a doorway and suddenly realising where I was. And the winner is Baldur's Gate 3. I spent a long time with Baldur's Gate 3. I collected a lot of different stories from my time with the game, and occasions when I would spend a full real-world day stuck on a single combat encounter, strategically making incremental progress, and then losing it all to an unlucky dice roll, or arriving in Baldur's Gate, the city, and ending up in an argument with a carrier pigeon. I personally enjoyed realising that my strong characters could pick up smaller characters and hurl them over cliffs, and failing that I could always just shoulder shove them. I must apologise for the fact that none of the footage you're seeing on screen demonstrates an ounce of this problem solving, but in my defence it's a little hard to do in the opening of the game, and I didn't want to reload a late game save and have spoilers. Baldur's Gate 3 is an incredible game, with a lovable cast of brilliantly written characters, excellent voice acting, and a richly detailed world fit to bursting with secrets and stories. But I will always remember it as the game that let me create a non-binary mage who threw rocks at people and got their buff friends to shove other characters into bits. Obviously, exploring new and exciting stuff is the point of awards season, but a big part of gaming as a leisure activity is sometimes in re-experiencing an old favourite, and that's what the Old Favourite Award is for. The contenders for games that I replayed this year are Dark Souls 3, Dishonored 2, Hollow Knight, and Subnautica. This year, the winner is Dishonored 2. It's not necessarily my favourite from the list, but rather the game that gave me the most interesting replay. This year I did a run of the game where I had no magical powers and without killing anybody in one run. It changed how I engaged with the world design in each of the missions. It was a really fun challenge, and I'm very proud of the achievement. Dishonored 2 is a game with tremendously good environment and level design, and finding new ways to explore and navigate it is definitely something I recommend to anyone with an interest in how game worlds and levels are put together. This is my final award, the New Favourite Award. You can consider it my Game of the Year. The contenders are the Resident Evil 2 remake from 2019, the Hollow Knight Silksong, Pacific Drive, or Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart. It was hard to choose this year, there were so many good choices, but any game that I actively choose to play through 6 times is an instant new favourite, so the award has to go to the Resident Evil 2 remake. This was also my original choice for the Scary Game Award until I played Hollowbrook Apartments. After my initial 2 playthroughs that I wrote about in my big document, I went on to play through both campaigns on hardcore, and then again on easy mode for the small carbon footprint, minimalist and frugalist achievements, and then twice more for S ranks and the last few bits in the main campaign. I then played through the slightly crappy extra modes in order to get the last few achievements, and boy is it really crushing that you have to play through the kind of shitty 3 Ghost Survivors modes before you can unlock the absolutely excellent No Way Out mode. I was talking to my mum about the Resident Evil 2 and Resident Evil 3 remakes, and I think she put it best when she said that it was as though I was stranded in a desert, and they were the first drink of water I'd had in days. I blitzed through the RE2 make 3 times in a week, because it's an absolute masterclass in technical art, atmosphere, and tension. But it's the sound design that really makes it stand out against the rest of these contenders. The sound of Mr. X stomping around the station always puts me on edge, and seeing him relentlessly marching purposefully towards me down a corridor and realising that I had absolutely nowhere to go was one of the most stressful and frightening experiences I've had in a game since Alien Isolation. So that's my Game Awards for 2025. You may note a distinct absence of some large new releases on that list. That is because I did not play them. Yes, I loved Silksong, but I didn't love it as much as the original Hollow Knight because I liked the exploration and atmosphere of the areas, and every time I was exploring an area in Silksong, a guy dropped onto my head and stole all my rosaries. Still a great game though, just not necessarily one of my favourites. Anyhow, I'm excited about a few things next year. I'm going to keep working through my backlog, but specifically I want to try and play through the System Shock games. I'm looking forward to Resident Evil Requiem in February, and hopefully we'll get some news about Act 2 of Carter's Quest. Most of all though, I am excited to try and get Station 77 in front of publishers and a demo on Steam next year. I don't know the exact time frame on it, but we're hard at work getting lots of things done. Mostly the monster, we're trying to get her working, and overhauling some of the animations. There's a lot more that still needs doing, and I don't want to make any promises because, you know, the best laid plans of mice and men and all that, but I am at least partially confident and very proud of the work that we've managed to do so far. So, let me know what you played this year. If you disagree with anything I just said, then that's tough shit. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, bye bye.